Hi, Gary DeWaal here, and this is Bridging the Week, February 10th to 14th, and today is February 18th, 2014. Good morning. Mandatory trading of certain interest rate swaps on swap execution facilities or designated contract markets has finally begun in the United States, beginning the completion in this country of the September 2009 G20 stated goal to have all standardized swaps cleared and centrally executed. However, package transactions involving multiple legs, where only a portion may involve a swap required to be mandatorily executed, received a last-minute reprieve last week from this requirement from the Commission. And among other locations where swaps subject to mandatory execution requirements may now be traded by U.S. persons are qualified European Union-based multilateral trading platforms, at least through March 24th and possibly beyond. It's the day after President's Day in the United States, so after a long 3-day weekend, I'm sure most of you are well rested and eager to clean up your desk of all the projects you avoided in order to get home early last Friday on Valentine's Day. So let me help by getting right to the top stories here on Bridging the Week. Certain swaps trading is now mandated to occur on or subject to the rules of CFTC registered swap execution facilities or designated contract markets, and the number of instruments required to be traded will increase over the next few weeks. However, swap trades that are part of so-called package transactions are not subject to this mandatory requirement until the earliest of May 15th. This is because of no action relief granted last week by the CFTC. In case you don't know, package transactions are multiple leg transactions involving more than one swap or financial instrument, where at least one leg, absent the CFTC granted relief, is subject to the mandatory execution requirement. By the way, at the same time it granted this no-action relief, the CFTC also provided a convenient summary chart of all swaps subject to the mandatory execution requirement beginning February 15th and during the next few weeks. I have more information on the CFTC no-action relief and package transactions, as well as a link to this convenient CFTC summary chart on my website. Check it out. Last week, on February 12th, the CFTC and the European Commission reported a significant progress in their effort to fashion a harmonized framework for CFTC-regulated swap execution facilities and EU-overseen multilateral trading facilities. On the same day, the CFTC granted no-action relief that permits qualified multilateral trading facilities from not having to register with the CFTC as SEFs in order to handle certain swap transactions on behalf of U.S. persons. This relief was necessary because of the mandatory requirements that went into effect on February 15th that would have precluded execution of such swaps on non-CFTC registered multilateral trading facilities by U.S. persons. The CFTC granted relief is in two phases. All multilateral trading facilities overseen by a European Union regulator are exempt from SEF registration automatically through virtually midnight on March 24, 2014, unless they have received separate relief earlier from the CFTC's Division of Market Oversight, and upon receipt of separate relief from the Division of Market Oversight, which should be issued upon the Division's receipt of a trading facility's request to be exempt from registration as a SEF, which contains a certification that the MTF meets 4 basic conditions. These are mostly dealing with the fact it is under comparable requirements of a local regulator, and it only grants access to highly sophisticated eligible contract participants. I've got a lot more details on my website. Check it out. During a meeting of the CFTC Technology Advisory Committee last week, which I attended, 3 principal topics were discussed: swap data reporting, the Commission's concept of release regarding automated trading, and swap execution facilities. No material new ground was broken on any topic. However, I heard one idea that I found very interesting, even if I did not agree with it or the premise on which it was based. Eric Budish, an associate professor at the University of Chicago, argued that a change to traditional exchange execution platforms could help alleviate some of the concerns raised by persons critical of some aspects of superfast algorithmic trading. According to Professor Budish, adoption of a discrete time, frequent batch auction methodology, essentially resetting the market once every 1 second or 100 milliseconds or some other small interval, could help eliminate the potential for market abuses in order to eliminate somewhat the advantage of super-fast traders. To support his proposal, Professor Budish presented statistics he claimed demonstrated a breakdown of certain expected correlations between related financial instruments that he attributed to high-frequency trading, or what he termed the arms race. Again, I may not agree with the professor's ideas, but it's nice to hear something different now and again. Last week, the CFTC prevailed in 2 legal actions against individuals and firms after filing charges that the respondents had induced customers to invest funds fraudulently and then misappropriate at least some of their customer funds for personal purposes. Coming less than 2 weeks after the National Futures Association sought comment on possible capital requirements and enhanced customer protection requirements for registered commodity pool operators and commodity trading advisors, these cases serve as a reminder that no capital requirements or customer protection provisions for registrants will protect customers from fraud, including misappropriation by non-registrants. Only a diligent enforcement program by regulators and other law enforcement personnel can deal with these miscreants and help protect the public. Check out the details of these actions on my website. The UK Financial Conduct Authority likewise reported that an individual, Benjamin Wilson, has been sentenced 7 years by a UK court for his role in running an unlicensed fund and inducing over 300 investors to place 21.8 million Great British pounds, or 36.5 million US dollars, in his sham enterprise for futures trading from 2003 to 2010. When Mr. Wilson's enterprise was finally shut down, its investors were owed in excess of 17 million Great British pounds, or 28.5 million US dollars, of which only a little more than 5 million Great British pounds, or 8.4 million US dollars, is likely ever to be recovered. Only a small portion of funds given to Mr. Wilson was actually ever traded. As mentioned, a large part was used for personal purposes. 2 days after European Union-based financial and non-financial institutions began mandatory reporting OTC and exchange-traded derivatives to trade depositories, the European Securities and Markets Authority wrote a letter to the European Commission asking them to clarify the definition of a derivative and a derivatives contract. ESMA claims the definition of these terms is inconsistent across the EU, particularly regarding foreign exchange and physically settled commodity forwards. Hey, the Commodity Exchange Act still does not define the term futures contract. Maybe the European Commission can help out on that one too. The U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission approved the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority's proposed rule change that requires alternative trading systems to report to FINRA weekly volume information and number of security transactions by security, and utilize one unique market participant identifier when reporting information to the regulator. These requirements will be phased in beginning May 12th. And finally, the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission announced last week that it will host a roundtable in Washington, D.C. on March 26th to discuss cybersecurity and the issues and challenges it poses for market participants and public companies. This follows the issuance by the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority of a targeted examination letter last month advising member firms that it is currently conducting an assessment of their approaches to managing their cybersecurity risks. Cybersecurity is a big problem for everyone. Well, that's it for this week's Bridging the Week. As always, there's more on each story, and more stories too on the article version of Bridging the Week on my website. Check it out. I can't wait to see how the first week of mandatory execution for certain swaps on certain trading facilities goes. We'll certainly know more about that until next week. Until then, again, this is Gary DeWaal. This has been Bridging the Week, and ciao.